I'm just a little bit curious, guys. Did Joe Biden just threaten half of America, or is this right here just bluster? Or is it possibly something else completely different?
For those brave right-wing Americans who say it's all about keeping America's independent and safe, if you want to fight against the country, you need an F-15. You need something a little more than a gun. No, I'm not joking. Think about this. Think about the rationale we use.
Before we start this video, guys, I need to let you know that this particular video will be on both channels, John Claymore and Gear Issue 33. Now, the reason why I'm doing this video is because a lot of people have kind of got their eyebrows raised at exactly what Joe Biden said. And of course, on Gear Issue 33, where I take on more military type scenarios, which by the way, there'll be a lot more of them in the future, I oftentimes bring this stuff up, and of course you hear people like Tim Pool, and you hear people like Stephen Marsh, and of course you've even got The Guardian asking the question, if another civil war in America is possible, you've kind of got to look at this, and you've got to kind of dispel some things. Now, the reason why I'm bringing up this comment was obviously because he said it. And of course, not long after this comment comes out, his press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, goes out there and says this right here.
Thinks that there is an extremist threat to our democracy. The president has been clear as he can be on that particular piece when we talk about a democracy, when we talk about our freedoms. The way that the MAGA Republicans are the most energized part of the Republican Party. This is an extreme threat to our democracy, to our freedom, to our rights.
So it sounds like you're going to actually try to persecute one side of the aisle. Now, guys, you had one administration leave office, and then the next administration comes in. They say that the previous administration had classified documents in his home, which, by the way, they then released a report or an affidavit on this. And, of course, everything was blacked out. Now, guys, I discussed this in a video last week. And, of course, you look at this and it just looks like another great big giant nothing burger, which, by the way, it normally is. But the reason why I want to do this video is because we need to break down exactly why it was that Biden said this. We also need to break down what it is that Biden voters don't know, what libs believe versus what libs don't see, basically meaning that they're in a false sense of security. And of course, why it is that I'm not really and truly that concerned as for, or at least I'd say maybe, I think worried is actually the better term. And of course, I'm going to be breaking that down in this video. So this video is going to be kind of a banger. It's going to be kind of a long one. So make sure you guys stick around and let's go ahead and get to the full context of this situation. By the way, this is a video that I've actually made twice, but I had to kind of delete because some things got jacked up in the editing. I don't think that's going to be an issue tonight. So let's go ahead and get into the minutia of this entire ordeal. Well, first, guys, what we need to talk about is why it was that Biden made these contents. Now, guys, before we go any further, I'm going to play for you guys both clips from the actual rally. Also, something else, too, and I'm probably going to ask this question again on the flip side. Why is it that Biden is only doing rallies in blue states? You see, there's a whole other, let's just say a whole other comment, a whole other saying that he had that somehow or another did not get as much covering, but we'll be going over that too.
For those brave right-wing Americans who say it's all about keeping America's independent and safe, if you want to fight against the country, you need an F-15. You need something a little more than a gun. No, I'm not joking. Think about this. Think about the rationale we use. When it comes to public safety in this nation, the answer is not defund the police. It's fund the police. Fund the police.
So, guys, he also talked about gun control in that rally, which, by the way, will be a part of this video as well because it'll also be in section 4 of this video. Now, here's the deal. Why is Biden talking like this? Why is he also at the same time talking about basically refunding the police? Well, here's the deal. Democrats ran on, and by the way, I'm going to lead with this right first. Democrats ran on defund the police back in 2020. They ran on this. They did this right to obviously appeal to inner city minorities, mostly African Americans, to try to drive up the vote because in 2016, Hillary Clinton's overall African American turnout was actually quite low, and Donald Trump in 2020 actually netted between 11 and 12% of that vote, which, by the way, was actually double the vote that he had gotten the previous administration. Also, something else, too. African Americans are actually leaving the Democratic Party, and to go on top of this, this poll was released by IA Polls 2022 Interactive, and of course they have noted that Hispanic support is swinging heavily to Republicans, people between the ages of 18 and 39. Now, it looks to me like Democrats are hemorrhaging voters in these areas. By the way, these are two blocks of voters that they desperately need, the African-American vote and they need the Hispanic vote. Now, guys, if Republicans in 2022 get a massive amount of Hispanic support with white support, they'll blow the Democrats completely out of the water. By the way, Biden's approval rating in a lot of these battleground states, of course, you're seeing this as far as civics. By the way, people don't like to use civics. I found out that civics was not that far off. They were actually pretty close to being very accurate in 2020. I think civics is a poll that we need to actually take a look at, as well as Trafalgar and a few other polls. The Economist YouGov poll is kind of lost some of its accuracy there, but I still use it for context of this video. Biden's got a very, very low approval rating. So obviously, what did he do last week? He said, I want to forgive student loan debt, which, by the way, even Nancy Pelosi said he cannot constitutionally do. And by the way, if he was to forgive $10,000 in student loan debt, then, of course, this right here would obviously piss off the taxpayers because they're being forced to pay for somebody else's decisions, of course, when it comes to not paying off their debt. Also, something else, too, I didn't make this point in those videos, was that you're actually pissing off other people who may have actually paid off their student loans who feel like maybe they should get a refund. So you're actually angering voters on both sides. Also, something else, too, with this refund the police rhetoric, you're also angering your left-wing support base. Also, I know I've said also 3 times, but look at these tweets right here by Nina Turner. They were demanding that Biden forgive more. So in some circles, $10,000 is not enough. You see, you can't satisfy the left, which, by the way, is going to be the main meat of this video. We're going to be discussing the left at actual length here, and why it is, I think, the third option that I opened the video with is very, very possibly the actual right answer to what exactly is going on here. Before we move over to the next section, I got to kind of throw this out there. You see, a lot of people believe that this right is actually just Biden bluster because Biden has gaffes all the time. But here's the thing, though. Back in 2007 or it was 2008, when Biden was ramping up to run for president, eventually Obama would become the nominee and Biden, of course, would be his vice president. Biden was caught saying, you can't go anywhere, you can't go to a 7-Eleven without hearing an Indian accent. Of course, we all know about him going on Charlemagne the God's program, the Breakfast Club, and saying, if you're not sure if you're from me or Trump, then you ain't black. He also said that the Latin American community, unlike the African American community, was not a monolithic group. You see, I think that Joe Biden is letting a lot of Freudian slips out late in his age because Biden is actually a racist. If you guys don't believe me, go take a look at who spearheaded the 91 crime bill. Go take a look at who spearheaded the 1994 crime bill. Joe Biden is very, very much a racist individual. So, guys, what is it that Biden voters don't know? Okay, I got to point this out. You see, painting right-wingers the way they do is just red meat to the base. You see, we have a very, very polarized country, and, of course, they're trying to present this narrative. However, I've got next-door neighbors that I'm pretty sure are not right-wing that I talk to every day. I mean, I live in an apartment complex. Obviously, you guys can see that. I don't run into people of color and that they're like, I don't see them being standoffish. You see, I think a lot of this right here is played up for cities and cities alone. Don't worry, we'll get back to this towards the end of the video because it's kind of a theme of playing at the actual left. Now, guys, there's something else, too, that needs to be addressed. You see, in all of our urban areas, or maybe our major urban areas like New York, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, Dallas, Philadelphia, crime is obviously through the roof. So obviously you would send money back to these places who, by the way, defunded their police departments, and now they're paying the price, with Minneapolis in particular. So you would send money out there to make these police departments a lot bigger, obviously to help handle crime. The thing is this right here, you're basically trying to fix the mess that, quite frankly, you created. Now, guys, the Obama administration, and we'll be bringing the Obama administration up again, is kind of an MO of their people. What they do is they take a problem that's already bad, make it 10 times worse. Then they go out of their way to fix half of the problem, usually through nefarious means, and then they come back and tell you that we fixed the problem or we're actually fixing the problem. After a while, this trope kind of becomes nonsensical, and people eventually get tired of it, and people can see right through it. I think the American people, for the most part, are actually smarter than what they were back in 2012. Okay, I just figured I would go ahead and throw that out there. But the thing is this right here, we need to go ahead and smash this narrative right now. There's this narrative out there that most of the United States lives in urban areas. Well, my question or my point is this right here. What urban areas are you talking about? You see, when you talk about urban areas, people automatically think of New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Cincinnati, Cleveland, LA. They automatically think of those places there. However, what they're not thinking about is towns like, say, where I live at, where it's like only 120,000 people live here, or my hometown, which only like 40,000 people live in, or the next town over, which is half the size of this one right here, or the suburban towns that sit outside of big cities. You see, urban can mean any town that's just an actual honest to God town. Okay, this right here also factors in small towns. If you take away the massive urban centers themselves, if you take those away and then you add all the small towns, which by the way are still classified as urban, you add suburban areas and you add rural areas, the population's actually bigger on that side. Of course, it takes all three together, but the population's actually bigger. You see, most people think that urban areas, they think that, well, 65% of America is urban. Not really. Only about maybe 30% of America is actually true urban, as in big cities, where everything else is small towns. These small towns still get classified as urban. And of course, you guys are seeing this congressional map that I'm putting up right here. Kind of gives you an idea of where the conservatives are at. Most of us live in smaller towns. Most liberals, of course, they live in the quote-unquote Clinton archipelagos. Coastal cities, bigger cities, those very, very blue areas, of course, some borders. Like I said, we call them the Clinton archipelagos for a reason. So basically what Joe Biden is doing is just simply trying to just keep up the narrative that us right-wingers are semi-fascists. And by the way, I got to make this point right quick. I know I'm going to catch some flack in the comment section over this right here, and there may even be some people make videos that's on a later date, but I highly advise you guys go watch these two YouTube videos, one from Razor Fist and one from Eric D. July. You see, the common cold belief is that fascism is right-wing. However, when you actually study fascism and you study National Socialism itself, you find that it's actually very, very much left-wing. Giovanni Gentili is the one who kind of came up with this philosophy, and it was really nothing more than just an extension from Marxism, which, by the way, is an extension from materialism, which, by the way, is, for the most part, an extension from what you saw in the French Revolution. Let us talk about what libs believe. Okay, let's talk about this. You see, Biden was talking about F-15s, but see, liberals believe our military is just this great big giant force. Take it from a guy who actually served. The military is not as big of a community as you think. First and foremost, let's address F-15s and airplanes. Okay, do you know why they're called F-15s? By the way, the vast majority of left-wingers are not going to know this. F-15s are called F-15s because it means Fighter Model 15. Meaning it's designed to take down other planes. Okay, same thing with F-16s, same thing with F-18s. They used to be F-A-18s, but they're not exactly attack planes. They're planes designed for escort. They're planes that are actually designed for dogfighting and dogfighting primarily. Okay, they're designed to escort bomber jets. That was their original intention. Okay, that was exactly what they were designed for. Okay, now can they drop bombs on targets? Yes, they can. But we'll be getting into that right there here in a second. Something like an A-10 Warthog is actually an attacker. You see, libs, they don't know this, and don't worry, we'll be spending a good section of this video talking about the military and what exactly it is that they don't know, and of course why it is that they have the false belief that they do about the military just coming in and just blowing up a bunch of right-wingers. That's not how this thing works. Now guys, most of the weapons that we use, especially our planes, especially our land-based missiles, and even our space-based missiles, the vast majority of them are precision-based, meaning that they're designed to take out small targets of interest. Okay, now, obviously you've got nukes and stuff, but who the hell would drop a nuclear missile on their own country? I mean, when I look at someone like Eric Swalwell say something like, we've got nuclear missiles, I just keep thinking of that time that he busted a fart right there on live national television. This guy is not somebody to take serious, but here is the thing, and this is the thing I've been trying to get through to our friend on the left, is that these weapons are all precision-based. Now, we do carpet bombs, yes, but not in the way you think. Now, guys, I want you, if you don't believe me, go look at some old World War II footage of airplanes dropping bombs. So go look at the same thing in Vietnam. You see napalm. You see bombs dropping other places. Let me ask you a serious question, okay? And let me just go ahead and make this point. What do you think is more effective? Dropping bombs on industrial areas, which, by the way, are mostly in cities, or dropping bombs in rural country areas or small towns? It's probably going to be more effective to drop those bombs on cities. It's also going to be more effective to launch these precision-guided weapons into cities and big buildings where they would be more than likely to be actually much, much more effective. You see, if you drop a bunch of bombs onto an actual area where there's farmland at, the only thing you may have done was take out a farmer's crop, or let's just say you drop those bombs on areas that, quite frankly, are not, let's just say it's not land that's been plowed yet. The only thing you did was just give that farmer a head start on plowing his next crop. And our boots on the ground force. You see, something else too that liberals believe is that they believe our military is just this great big vast network. Now, guys, our military has got bases all over the world. Okay, we're protecting installations in Germany. We're protecting installations, I think, in England, Spain. You've got Rota. You've got installations. Where else? You've got training installations, I think, in Finland. You've got bases in Poland. And, of course, you've got bases in Aviano, Italy. So our military is pretty freaking big, but we use it abroad. Now, guys, let me go ahead and break something down for you. Our military at this moment in time sits at 2.2 million men. By the way, recruitment is down for the United States Army. Recruitment is down altogether. The Air Force, the Navy, and the Space Force make up about a third of our military, whereas the Army makes up a great big portion, and the United States Marine Corps is the smallest branch. I know this, I'm a prior service Marine. In the event of something like a civil war or a government actually launching something on its people, more than likely the Marines would be deployed overseas to take out overseas targets and, of course, actually protect overseas assets. They would more than likely not be used against the American people. By the way, this entire thing was revisited just before the transfer of power when I think it was General Berger said he didn't say it outright, but he basically told Nancy Pelosi, you're not allowed to have my Marines. Now, let's go ahead and throw something else out there too. Speaking of the military itself, so you're probably thinking, okay, well, you know, we still can go after people. We got the National Guard. Okay, the vast majority of the National Guard, I can go ahead and tell you right now that 85% would not even muster to the actual formation that you would actually use against these people. The same issue happened in Virginia. You know, they call up the National Guard to go out there and seize people's guns, and of course, only the dumbest of the dumb actually show up to formation. Only those guys show up to muster. That right there is probably what you would run into. You see, left-wingers don't seem to realize this, but about 60 to 70% of our military, they come from very, very patriotic families. As a matter of fact, I would even argue that 100% of the military comes from very, very patriotic working-class families. Only about 30% of the military, which, by the way, is the social justice warrior side, the side that most Democrat would possibly even consider even going into this entire scenario. Also, something else, too, let's just say that only 60% of the military is conservative. You've still got like another 10 to 15% that is actually more libertarian and more than likely would not partake. You see, as I said before, you recruit these people from patriotic working class families. I know that because I used to be one of those guys. And something else, too, that you have to also consider is that of 500 some odd thousand active members of the U.S. Army, only about 125,000 of them are actually ready to go fight right away, and they're active duty personnel who probably would, guess what, be used overseas in protecting overseas installations. If this country went to a civil war, everybody would probably want to join in, and everybody would probably go to war with one another. Also, we're also the world's police. So go ahead and scrap that notion right now. So it sounds like the bluster narrative is actually pretty freaking big because obviously lefties are brainwashed and they believe every single thing that they hear. One more thing that needs to be said is that even if you call it the reserves, a lot of these guys have not seen actual action, and they don't go to the field as often as you think. Whereas the American gun owner, on the other hand, somewhere between 90 to 100 million. By the way, the total could be more because there's a lot of people who have guns that, quite frankly, are grandfathered in. We actually train with our weapons. Veterans are actually armed. You got retired law enforcement. You got hunters. You got competitive shooters. You got people who actually train with their guns. By the way, this report about left-wingers suddenly buying guns, I kind of actually laugh at that a little bit because they're not going to be in any area to actually train because the vast majority of these people live in cities with very, very bad, very, very strict gun control laws, and some of these places don't even have freaking ranges. And let me go ahead and add this right here to it, okay, because I know lefties love to support the current thing. Let's bring up your favorite topic. Let's bring up Ukraine for a second. Ukraine is a country that, quite frankly, has gun control. The minute the Russians began to invade, whether they started handing out weapons to anybody and everybody. These people haven't actually trained with a weapon. Now, the Ukrainian military, on the other hand, has been training with NATO, which is partly trained by the United States, trains with the U.S. But isn't Russia having a problem? You know, Russia, big red, very, very big bad, that country that you kept accusing the previous administration of colluding with because they're so powerful, such a bad power. They're so awesome. Putin's such a, oh, God, he's such a hardcore general, and he's going to take us down, and he's going to beat us in the fight because of Trump. Don't you guys notice that they're not exactly having a good time fighting Ukraine at this moment in time? And the Ukrainian civilians have not properly been trained. They've had to learn on the fly. What the hell do you think is going to happen when a force goes up against people who actually train with their weapons? By the way, To all you guys out there, especially on the left, and by the way, the left-wingers keep on saying that we lose wars, this, that, and the other, but now they're cheering for the American military and think that the American military is just going to take the actual American gun owner. Let me go ahead and throw this out here. We spent 20 years in Afghanistan. We did not handle that correctly. We spent a long time in Iraq. We did not handle that correctly. What the hell makes you think that an actual fight against the American people, most of course, the gun owners, of course, are veterans and people who train with weapons, what the hell makes you think that war would go any different? I mean, if anything, it would be a complete nightmare scenario for the American military to actually undertake. I mean, think about it. Just sit here and think about that. Do you want a very, very long insurgency war? By the way, if you go after people in small towns and rural areas, you're also cutting off your supply lines. Don't worry, we will be getting to that there a little bit later on in the video. But the fact of the matter is that going up against the American gun owner is just a completely, how do I say, unpractical task, and it's actually a nightmare situation for the government at large. This right here is a perfect segue into part 4 of this video, and we got to talk about what it is that liberals don't see. You see, liberals right now live in a let's just go ahead and call it a false sense of security. They think that they're in these cities that they're actually safe. Hence the whole Save for America plan, which, by the way, is where most of this money going to these police departments is going to be going to. Big city departments. So when you hear somebody say some stuff like, "Well, the right, they want to defund the FBI," I don't really want to defund it. I'd kind of like to reform it. Most of the right, for the most part, we just believe in supporting our local law enforcement, our local sheriff's departments, our local police departments, that sort of thing there, because we don't live in much larger places. But if the FBI was to be defunded, I don't know if that'd be entirely a good idea either. I do agree with reform and cleaning out the turds in the organization. I agree with cleaning out all the turds in the friggin' government itself. But let's go ahead and talk about this. You see, what libs don't seem to understand is that your food, your military protection, all this stuff comes from red states. So anytime you hear a liberal talk about how much tax dollars they got to send these red states, remind them that the military installations are mostly in red states. Remind them that their food is produced in most of these red states. And by the way, by the same logic, don't liberals make more money? Don't Democrat voters actually make more money, pay more overall tax revenue? Don't they live in areas that, quite frankly, have a much higher cost of living? If that right there is the case, by that logic, your tax dollars would probably, you're probably going to get taxed a little bit more based on that actual logic itself. I don't want to hear you guys complain about sending money to red states while you guys are trying to push your blue state politics down our freaking throat. Let me make this point right quick on gun control before we get to the last part of the video. When Barack Obama came into office in 2009, he had 59 senators. He passed a stimulus package, of which a lot of that money went to companies that, quite frankly, didn't need the money, or it also went to places like Solyndra that were going out of business anyways, which, by the way, would eventually go out of business. And then, of course, he slammed through Obamacare. Okay. He had Sandy Hook, he had Newtown, he had an opportunity to institute an AR-15 ban then. He did not do it. Let me go ahead and explain the reasons why he did not do it. Now, somebody in the comment section is going to say, well, he ran as a pro-2A Democrat, which, by the way, he did, but this way was going into his second term. And he had 51 Democrat senators. Republicans only had 45 at the time. The thing is this right here, Obama had an opportunity to take care of that issue, and he even had some rhino Republicans. You see, even Barack Obama understood that gun control in this country would not work. And if you actually tried to physically confiscate the guns, it could create a shit hit the fan scenario. Is this right here the reason why it is in 2016? I'm sitting at a gun counter and a guy who I used to work with shows up to where I'm working at that time as a gun salesman and tells me that he thinks that Barack Obama is trying to get NATO to try to take our guns away from us. I mean, there was this UN bill where they wanted to get gun control on a global scale. I do remember that right there. But the thing is this right here. At the time, I said to myself, NATO's only got about 500,000 men that can actually do anything, and they've still got to work with our troops overseas, so I don't think it's a realistic option. However, Joe Biden does have actual ties to China, and that Hunter Biden laptop stuff is going to get a lot worse. I promise you guys it will. I'm just saying that you can't disarm the people of the United States. The most that you can do is create minor inconveniences, which, by the way, I'll be talking about in another video. By the way, I'll be leaving this video right here in the comment section from Heavy Duty Country. The ATF is at it again. They create a lot of minor inconveniences by doing stuff like going after pistol braces, going after FRTs, now solve it. They create mostly minor inconveniences, which, by the way, are typically rebutted in court. You see, oftentimes when somebody tries to confiscate from someone, you then sue said organization. It goes to Supreme Court, and they have an actual ruling. Well, right now you've got a conservative Supreme Court. This is another reason why you want to vote Republican in 2022, because if Democrats try to pack the court, life is going to be miserable for every freaking body, and then the country probably will plunge into some type of civil strife. So, no, outside the minor inconveniences and executive orders, I don't see them ever getting gun control done. And even if they did get gun control done and they try to do a confiscation, they know that a true shit hit the fan scenario would suddenly occur. And quite frankly, they don't want that. And here is why I'm not worried. First and foremost, guys, I know that the vast majority of what Joe Biden was saying was complete politics, and politics at best. It's red meat to his base. And let me go ahead and give you the first example. I'm going to try to go through this as fast as I can. Now, guys, I want you guys to think about something really quick. This was a point that I made in the video about student loan debt forgiveness, which, by the way, still may not even be forgiven because they're trying to do it through executive order. Here's the deal. If you add all this inflation, especially with this recent bill that they signed, the $740 billion bill, you make college almost impossible to enroll to. So then all of a sudden, only rich white kids can go, which means that you're actually stymieing minorities from going to college. To go on top of this, you're also stymieing just about anybody who's working class from going to college. Now, guys, this right here obviously sucks when you look at it at first. But aren't these colleges like woke indoctrination centers now? Aren't these universities where they're picking up wokeness? You see, the silver lining here is that while the government may dole out more money for loans, which, by the way, is going to make everything go up in price, it makes college almost unaffordable. You see, a lot of people will go to college at a later date, like when they're like 25 or 26 years old. They would have already been in the work world for a while. Hell, they may have even joined the military and gotten their college taken care of for free through their GI Bill. And it's possible that when they show up to these campuses, they may not be indoctrinated or indoctrinatable, if you guys know what I'm saying. Like, for example, me. I went to college when I was 26 years old, and they were already starting the liberal stuff. I could not be indoctrinated because, unlike most of my classmates, I had already spent time in the Marine Corps, and I'd obviously spent an additional 4 years in the actual work world, actually working jobs, so I understood how things went. A lot of these kids have never actually had any jobs, and they don't really know. So ask yourself a question. Are these kids that are going to college when they're like in their 20s or whatnot, are they going to be able to be indoctrinated? I personally don't think you're going to be able to indoctrinate that many of them. And also something else, too. If you don't have poor working class kids or middle class kids going to college, next thing you know, your little woke army that you want to take over the United States with suddenly dwindles in size. This is one of the reasons why I said we're going to feel a lot of pain early on, but the woke left may have actually destroyed their own army in the long term by demanding this crap. And the Kenosha kid took down 3 of your guys with 3 shots while under duress. So I don't see the left wing actually being able to pull off this little miracle that they're trying to work on. Now, guys, here's another reason why I'm not worried. And of course, this right is where I'm going to end the video at, because I know it's been a long-winded video, and that's taken a lot to get through this. But guys, here's the deal. And by the way, there'll be a much more nuanced project on this in the future. The ideological left right now eats itself at a ridiculous rate. Also, something else too. If a civil war was to occur in this country, it would mostly be blue on blue crime because it would mostly be in the cities. Ask yourself a question. Who are the people that Antifa are mostly attacking when they actually get into the riots? They're attacking mostly Democrat voters, people who are closely aligned with them politically. They're not attacking any right-wingers. I understand the Patriot Prayer thing. I understand that. I get that incident. But at the same time, though, I think that there was kind of a rare incident. And while it was tragic, just know that the MO of Antifa and a lot of these left-wing groups is to attack moderates that are actually closer aligned to them politically. I mean, all you got to do is just take a look at the actual numbers of who actually lives in those cities and how they actually vote. The thing is this right here. The left ideologically eats itself. Okay, right now you've got Jimmy Dore being called right-wing by Cenk Uygur, yet Jimmy Dore's from the Blame America crowd is as left-wing as you can get. Also, Glenn Greenwald, very, very left-wing, called right-wing by Cenk Uygur. You see, the left always finds a way to self-destruct. And as like I told you guys in this previous section of this video, you just cut off your woke army in the future with the student loan debt forgiveness crap because you're making the rates go through the roof, and now nobody can go to college. Yes, I know people are just going to dole out money, but that's just going to make inflation much, much worse. Nobody's going to want to take that on. And by the time you get your college kids, they probably would have spent about 4 to 6 years in the actual real world before they went to college, making them almost completely unindoctrinatable, if you guys know what I'm saying. It might have came out wrong. That's one of the reasons why I don't worry, because I know at the end of the day, the left actually screws itself up constantly. the same way they screwed themselves over by voting for Joe Biden. You see, guys, you want him to defund the police. You want him to forgive student loan debt. The best he can do is $10,000. So you guys feel a little bit gypped off. Well, defund the police, right? Okay. Where do you think the vast majority of this money going to police departments is going to? It's going to the areas you guys live at, the big cities. So did you guys actually get a raw deal? So yes, it's a combination of all three. Joe Biden was threatening right-wingers. Yes, it's also mostly bluster. But also something else too. It's a sign to the left-wing voter that Joe Biden simply just bent you over, stuck his crap in you without the common courtesy of a reach around, and he didn't even use lubricant. Guys, John Claymore, if you like the content, hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign up in the comment section, give me you guys your thoughts, and I'll see you guys later.